Hey guys, welcome to Module 5 in the Content Machine training course. Today we're going to be talking about 7 ways to achieve great content. And what I want to do in this module is not tell you how to do something, but just tell you 7 things that I've done that I know have worked for me. And what I want you to do with those is think about, can you try some of this stuff for yourself, or can you try something else and test it with your own content, your own audience, your own community, and see what gets traction for you. But it helps to work out to look at what worked for someone else. And some of these things might work well for you. So this is my definition of great content. So great content is something you provide to your audience that captures their attention and encourages them to engage and share. So it's not just a case of putting content out there. It's not a case of people visiting your content or liking your content. It's content that they want to share. And that's a new benchmark. It's a big difference between someone who likes something and someone who will actively share it to their people. It's content that they really care about. So that's what I want you to get to in terms of great content. And these are some of the things that I've done that I've noticed have resulted in that for myself. So number 1 is don't be afraid to go outside your niche. What I see a lot of people doing is they will have a business that is fundamentally not really that exciting, and they'll just create content about that industry or about that product. And in the end, people don't really want that. Like, people don't want boring stuff. So don't be afraid to go a little bit outside of that. And we do that with WP Curve. We do entrepreneurial stories and online marketing content. We don't just put content out there about how to fix problems in WordPress, because that would be boring and there are other people doing a good job of that already. So don't be afraid to go a little bit broader and create something great for people in your general community, generally related to your business, not just specifically about the niche that you're working on. You got to care about your community. The essence of content marketing is creating stuff for people that gets their attention and that they like and that they share. So you really need to know who you're creating the content for, and you need to care about those people. You need to engage with them in the comments or on social media or on your emails or however you do that in person, and really have a good understanding of who they are, what sort of content they like, and you need to have that empathy for them so you understand their problems, how you can solve them with your content, and really think about them and care about that community. Being more generous has been a huge one for me. I think if I can recommend anything, it's to just outdo other people in terms of generosity and just make yourself available, give away a lot more content, a lot more useful things to people. Be more generous. That's a really good way to build trust and to get attention, and just to make people care about what you're doing. And it's also a good thing to do. So it's a no-brainer for me. If you can think about ways you can be more generous, and that's going to help your content marketing. The 4th is to be more transparent. And because the long-term goal of content marketing is to build trust, transparency is a brilliant way to do that. You can reveal things about what you're doing in your business, follow the story of what you're doing in your business. We do things like monthly reports that talk about what content we've done and what traction we've got for that content. A lot of companies are using this transparency now to get attention for what they're doing and to build trust. And it's something that definitely works and is worthwhile having a go at if you can commit to that. The 5th is to be more contrarian. And this is something that I've noticed in the content I've put out. If I put out something boring that's sort of consistent with what other people think on the topic, it often doesn't get noticed. But if I can put out something that is a little bit different and it sort of flicks people's minds a little bit in terms of how they think about something, then it'll immediately get their attention. And I've done this a number of times with content I've put out where I've introduced some new ideas that people might not have been introduced to already, and that's a great way of getting people's attention. And this has been really useful for me. My first book, The 7-Day Startup, came as a result of a blog post about startup validation being bullshit, and that was the name of the post. It was a very successful post I did. It turned some of the startup thinking on its head, and it wasn't revolutionary thinking, but it was just a little bit different to what other people have been hearing consistently from other people around how they should validate their ideas and follow this sort of scientific process to work out if an idea is good or not. And I went against that and got a little bit of attention for that, and that ended up becoming a book and a big movement of companies that are following this process. And that was just from one little contrarian viewpoint. So this stuff can be really powerful, and if there's a way you can put your message out there that is a little bit different to what other people are saying, then by all means double down on that and try to get a little bit more attention for what you're doing. Number 6 is to be insanely useful, or this concept of extreme utility, which I talk about in the Content Machine book. It's it's not just giving people a blog post about something that gives them 10 tips. It's literally giving them everything they need in order to actually implement something. So think about how your audience is going to implement your content. Give them absolutely everything they need. And I'll go through an example of that shortly. The seventh is to tell a better story. And I've talked about storytelling a little bit in this course already. I've got a module, the final module in this course, where I'm going to talk about that. Stories are hugely powerful. If you can work out a way to intertwine your story into your business or into your content, then that can be a great way to get people's attention and for your content to really be differentiated from other people's. So I want to go through a couple of examples of these things. So this is an example of transparency. When I started WP Curve, in fact, a long time before I started it, I started doing these monthly reports at the time revealing all the income we were generating or we weren't generating at the time. So I started them in 2012 when I had no income, and we've done them all the way until now, and we'll probably keep doing them until we hit $1 million US dollars a year run rate. And the reason for that is because it's a great story to tell people from $0 to $1 million, starting a business, tracking that, being transparent about everything we're doing. It's something that people can follow along with, and some people who are new to starting businesses can track that, and they can get the trust in what we're doing. And it's been really good for us in getting attention, differentiating, and ultimately building trust. And this is extreme transparency. Some companies take it even further, like Buffer will do things like revealing all of the wages of people on their team. Some people will go not quite as extreme by, maybe not revealing income, but that maybe they will reveal what's working for them in their business or tell a story about what they're doing. This kind of transparency is really good for building trust. So think about if you can do something like that. Again, keeping in mind the differentiation piece where you do have to stand out from other people, and if everyone's doing it, then just copying them is not going to work. This is an example I've mentioned previously about being generous. And when I went on Pat Flynn's podcast, I dedicated about a month of my working life after that to just going into the comments and reviewing sites for people in his audience. And it had 738 comments at the time of doing this course. And I was traveling around the world at the time, stopping in at airports, spending a couple of hours reviewing people's websites. And I really gave, hours and hours and hours of extra time over and above a normal podcast interview. And I did that because I wanted to be more useful for people. And it's a good way to create a memorable experience for me being on that show, and a good way to get attention and to build trust. So if you can just be more useful, be more generous, then that's a great way to get attention. This is extreme utility, and I mean, you can probably go even more extreme than this, but this is when we think about how to put out content that really is useful for people. We not only write a very, very long, detailed blog post, say 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words that tells them exactly how to do something. We'll put images in there that outlines exactly what they need to do to achieve something. So this is about getting guest writers. We will tell them the processes we use. We'll show them the images we give to our guest writers to make sure they know what they're doing. Sometimes we'll do little videos. And then we'll back that up even further by sending them a whole bunch of documents they can use to implement this for themselves. So with the content marketing stuff, if they want a guest writer on the team, they're going to need a strategy. They're going to need a guest post creation guidelines. They're going to need the promotion template. They're going to need an editorial calendar Trello board, a guest writer management board. This is all the stuff we use to manage guest writers. And we give these to people for free, all on our blog. And this is basically saying we're not just going to give you 10 ideas for managing guest writers. We're going to help you actually do it. And that's being useful to the extreme. So if you can do that with your content, embrace this concept of extreme utility, just going above and beyond everyone else, then you're going to get a lot of attention for that. So they are a bunch of ideas that have worked for me with content marketing. I tried hundreds of different things. Those are the things that stood out to me. I would encourage you to try as many as you need to try in order to get attention and to create traction and interest in your community. Some of this stuff is universal, like caring about your community is just something you have to do, but some of these things, they may work, they may not work. So it's a case of testing, measuring, and also not just doing the same thing forever. You might find a year down the track that whatever you are doing is not having the same traction as it used to. So continuously reevaluating the strategy and testing things and doing what works is the best way to keep that content marketing strategy going forward and being effective. Okay, thank you guys. I will see you tomorrow in the next module.